Hello everybody, OWS of Kansas here. Happy New Year's to some of you anyway. Today we are going to be going over my clock collection, since I figured I would do something a little different from what I normally do. I've actually been into clock collecting longer than I've been into sirens, so that's a little fact there. But anyways, starting off, here is a whack-on-the-wall clock. It was made by a man who lives in a town not too far away from where I live. Or, I guess I might as well say it. It was made by a guy in Leon, Kansas. The case was custom made by him, and then the movement is a Howard Miller badged Hermle movement. I can't really remember the model of the movement offhand, but yeah, this thing is quite heavy, and the case is very large. It's about 30 or 40 inches from the base to the top of the pediment. But yeah, overall, very nice clock. And it's got a nice quiet chime, too. This is a Seth Thomas Omaha parlor clock. This is part of the Seth Thomas City series. I bought this one at a local clock sale from a man who gave it to me for one heck of a deal. I got it for like $40. But yeah, it's a very nice clock, has a bell strike. The dial is actually a replacement. It would have originally had a white Roman dial. But the dial that's on it currently still looks pretty nice. It actually has a unique feature where you open it by unlocking it with a winding key, which is something that I've only ever seen on ship's clocks. So that's quite a nice feature. One of my personal favorites in the collection. This one next to it is a New Haven kitchen clock, also commonly known as a gingerbread clock. This is part of the New Haven Merchant series. This one strikes on the hour and half hour on a coil gong. Has very nice etching on the glass, which is in very good shape as well. The camera's a bit dark, so you can't really see any of it, but if I get closer, here you can see some of the details. This was a Christmas present from my sister, so thank you, sis. Overall, very nice clock, and better than the Ray 2009s. Don't let him think that his is better, mine's better. Next to it here is another Seth Thomas. This is a tambour mantle clock that was made in February of 1948. This one strikes on 2 chime rods in the hour and half hour. I got this at an antique store. It was a little scruffy looking when I got it, but I put some Howard's Restore finish on the case, and it shined up and got rid of a lot of the scruffiness and looks way better. The chime hammers are a little clattery from time to time, and the snail seems to be bent since it strikes 3 at 1 o'clock and 4 at 2 o'clock. But then it strikes fine all the other hours. And then behind it here is another Seth Thomas. This is a later one. It's the Sharon model. It just uses a Hermle movement instead of an actual Seth Thomas movement. But this one I'm not really interested in keeping, so it's just kind of sitting back here. I've been trying to sell this for a long while, and no one's really seemed to buy it. No one's wanted to buy it, I should say. Coming over here, this is a Paravel Westminster chime mantle clock. Does Westminster chimes every 15 minutes, every quarter of an hour. I got this at an antique store for about $70, I believe. Has a very nice sounding chime and a silent function, which doesn't really work properly, but that's fine. This is a Hubert Hare cuckoo clock that I got brand new for my birthday around 6 years back. It's in kind of rough shape just because I got this when I was a first grader and I had no idea how to treat clocks back then, so it's pretty beaten up. I don't have it running right now just because I forgot to wind it up and I just haven't had time to start it and get it set to the correct time. But it does work. I just need to fix the door on it and get replacement bellow tops for it. Down here is a 30-hour OG made by the Connecticut Clock Company in New York. I got this at an antique store for about $45, which is a pretty good deal for one of these, especially because of how old especially with how old this one is. But the movement was in terrible shape. I think the entire thing was very dingy. Most of it was green, like an oxidized penny. And yeah, it needed a lot of love. But after $118 worth of repairs, it's now fixed and up and running somewhat decently. The chime side weight is too heavy for it, so it strikes insanely fast. And it also skips quite frequently as well. But this is an earlier OG with a wooden dial instead of the more common metal ones. The glass tablet is in really good shape, which I'm glad to see that it is. Up here, this is a Gilbert, WML Gilbert tambour mantel clock, made in 1928. This one I purchased from the clock shop for $65, which is a steal. Overall, very nice clock. There's a few dings and whatnot on the case, and before I ended up putting Howard Restorer finish on it, there was a big scuff that you could see on the case, and yes, I need to dust this thing. But there was a big scuff there, and that Howard's basically made the scuff significantly less visible, so I recommend getting that stuff. The overall runs very well, haven't had any issues with this one whatsoever. Here is another New Haven. This is a tiny, adorable little cottage clock. It stands about 9 inches high, 7 1/8 inches wide. The dial's 4 inches. I got this at the same clock still I got my Seth Thomas Omaha. It's got a very wide swing on it, and it's a very tiny, adorable 30-hour movement. Very cute clock. I never want to get rid of this one. This thing, I love it. Next to it is a Waterbury Newburgh kitchen clock. I got this at an antique store in Greenville, North Carolina, while I was visiting family. And it was then shipped to me here in Kansas. And now, yeah, it's a very nice clock. I just recently had the movement out, gave it a good oiling, and now the thing is running good. Haven't had any issues with it, aside from it stopping once, but that's just because the hands got hung up on one another. I just bent them out of the way of each other, and now it's working. Next to it is a Sessions, which I don't know the model of it or when exactly it was made, but I've nicknamed it the bread loaf because, I mean, looking at it, you can see why. I got this for $55 from the local clock shop. Again, a steal. It's in excellent shape. There's only a little dent in the top of the case, but it's barely noticeable. It does bim bam on the hour and does a passing strike on the hour. Or a passing strike on the half hour. Very nice clock. I'm quite happy with it. Here's another Sessions, which this one is definitely much more problematic as it doesn't like to run for more than a few days. And it tends to stop right around here, because that's when the movement has to work the hardest to move the hand, because it's moving the minute hand and simultaneously lifting up the bell for the passing strike on the half hour. So it does a passing strike on a bell on the half hour and rings a cathedral gong on the hour. This came from an estate sale. It was originally marked as $100, but I had it for $40. The only damage I'm noticing to the case is just this little bit here where the paint's flecked off. And the lion on this side is missing the ring. But other than that, really nice clock. Down here we have an Elgin battery-operated anniversary clock with a Howler battery-operated movement in it. Got this from my grandmother. She got it at an antique store, or not an antique store, a garage sale. For a while, it didn't have an hour hand because I accidentally broke it, since, again, I got this when I was pretty young, so I manhandled basically everything I laid my tiny hands upon. So, I mean, I'm more gentle with stuff now, obviously, but I was able to get a replacement hour hand for it. I don't have a battery in it at the moment. But next to it is a Keininger Act 400-day clock, except it's using a mechanical movement and not a battery-operated movement. So you wind it up once a year. It's got a normal 8-day sized mainspring in it, except it ticks very slowly, and that's how it's able to run for a year. I got this at a Goodwill for like $10, I think. It's in pretty good shape, all things considered, and it was important. Something I forgot to mention, it says Kundo on the dial, but itself is a Keininger. It was imported by Kundo, similar to Welby. Here is another Black Mantle clock. This time it's a Gilbert, which I affectionately nicknamed Big Willie. This has just a cathedral gong in it, and it has a passing strike on the hour, or on the half hour, and activates the mechanism on the hour. This one I received for free, along with some other ones which are sitting, gathering dust in the back because they're all broken. This was the only one that worked right off the bat. And it's quite nice. I definitely like this one. Even I can tell it was one of the cheaper models because the detailing on it compared to the other ones I have is fairly minimal, but it's still quite nice. Here's a Centurion 35-day Korean wall clock. These are extremely common. Quite cheaply made, but they are very nice looking. This was given to me by a different lady who just decided she didn't want it anymore, so she just gave it to me. I've had it for about 4 years or so, and it works very well. Haven't had any issues with it. And here is just a Kit Kat clock. These are fairly self-explanatory. And there's a Daniel Dakota, which again I don't have batteries in. But yeah, that's basically it for my clock collection. I hope you all have a happy 2024, and I'll see you all at some point. See ya.